I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with my partner, friend, and colleague, Mr. Nick Hodge, who's also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 221st edition of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk gold, we're going to talk uranium, we're going to talk debt ceiling. I'm going to ask Nick if he's gay yet. A lot to get into. Let's get right into it. Mr. Nick Hodge, first and foremost, how are you today? Are you indeed gay yet?
I'm gay to be here.
I know you have some pretty important family milestones coming up. I have a nice trip coming up to Yosemite in the near future, so I'm gay as all hell too.
Awesome. What's the backstory behind that?
Well, the backstory behind that is, I laugh at Twitter 99% of the time, no matter what it is, right? It could be somebody saying Gerardo's crazy, Gerardo's hair, whatever. It's all funny to me, right? It's not the real world. But I see so many people that I actually follow on Twitter. Some of these people that I know, and they are just out of this world offended that there's a Pride Month and that, Target has a section where you can embrace, your sexuality and you can embrace, and I wonder if people just think that if there's a Pride Month or a Pride celebration, they think they have to go and be gay, or if Target has a section, I just wonder if they think they have to go to Target and go to the section and become gay, or that their kids have to become gay. And we can have a conversation about groomers and all of that, but that's just a crime and that's just creepy, and it happens with, priests, and it happens with heterosexual people, and it happens across the board, right? And I'm all for targeting anybody that's targeting kids in a criminal manner or in a sexual manner that, obviously not cool at all. But people aren't offended at that. People are offended at just the fact that gay people exist, and they choose to say, for so long, we've been getting our ass kicked and we haven't been acknowledged just as a group. We're going to throw a party every now and then. And so I don't know.
And I'm sure they're great parties too.
Look, I have a lot of gay and bi friends. Some of the best parties I've ever been to are gay, bi, and very fluid parties. I've never walked out of one of those going, man, I wasn't gay then, but I sure as hell am gay now. Oh, man, I shouldn't have hung out with those gays. So anyhow, I figured I'd check if you were gay yet. Because it's Pride Month, and apparently we're all going to be gay.
It's all so silly. I've seen it. The Target, the Kohl's, the Bud Light, all the things, right? I see people I know locally from, where I grew up posting about it. There's a Skittles bag someone was ranting about this week. I mean, you've always had to taste the rainbow if you had the Skittles, right? I mean, this isn't really a reach for them. So, yeah, I mean, this is what it is, right? People are going to be upset about stuff all the time, and I think there's more important issues and bigger fish to fry. Like you say, if you don't want to embrace the pride, or you don't want to fly the rainbow flag, or wear the rainbow, the bathing suit or whatever, then don't buy it. If you don't want to wear the Black Rifle Coffee t-shirt or hat, you don't got to buy the Black Rifle Coffee t-shirt or hat, right? It's just the other side of the coin.
That's it. There was a baseball player for the Blue Jays, and you know what? He's right too. He made a comment saying that, he didn't want to wear his baseball jersey, with the Pride uniform on there, because he's fully heterosexual, really enjoys women, and, doesn't subscribe to the lifestyle. And I think he's right too. You shouldn't have to wear it, right? You shouldn't have to be forced to represent something that doesn't represent you. But also, if it doesn't represent you, then I don't think you should really care as much as some people seem to care about, the fact that there are options for people to celebrate their lifestyle.
So did they make him wear it, or did they fine him for not wearing it? I'd be interested in the answer to that.
I'll follow up. And I'll follow up by typing away right now and seeing exactly what happened, right? So let's get to the markets. Let me get your take on the overall indices. The NASDAQ, Kramer might be right for once. The NASDAQ's actually doing halfway decent, mostly on the back of Apple, which makes up a good bulk of that index, right? I think Apple hit highs that it hadn't hit since December of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Tell me, Mr. Hodge, are we out of the bear market woods yet?
No. The S&P 500 is up, I think, 10% for the year, but the S&P 493 is flat to up 1%, and those seven companies that make the difference from the S&P 493 to the S&P 500 are what you would guess, the companies you just mentioned, plus NVIDIA, right? So these tech companies are propping up the entire index, as it were. Like I say, they're responsible for all of the gains so far year to date on the back of AI, which, let's face it, has been a boon to companies like, especially NVIDIA, which everyone is talking about, which we all know has reached $1 trillion market cap. I played a game. I go downstairs to heat up my lunch on most days, and I turn on the Bloomberg. And yesterday I was like, I wonder how long it's going to take for them to mention AI. And so I turned on the TV and I walked to the fridge and I got my food. And before I could even get in the microwave, they were already talking about the AI. And then everyone's seen the chart, or if you haven't, just Google it, about the amount of times AI is mentioned on these conference calls. And we've been mentioning it here on the podcast as well. It's no different than, blockchain, right? Or crypto. Before, it's just the latest narrative to go up. And so if you look at the fundamentals, the technicals and the particulars of everything, we're still in a bear market and we're still in a growth slowing environment. Earnings growth for the S&P was negative. You've got nearly all the companies reporting now, I think 491 out of 500 or something like that. The earnings growth was down 2.7%. You look at the GDP and it's stagnating. And so, no, we're still in a bear market, and there's not a lot working. Like if you look at the 11 sectors of the S&P, 8 of them are down for the year. The ones that are up are the tech-related ones, communication services and tech companies. And so, no, we're in a bear market. And we were talking about the debt ceiling recently. For all the talk about that, and we can spend more time on it if you want. I have a couple of things I'd like to not get off my chest, but discuss about the debt ceiling. There was no euphoria when a deal finally got reached, right? Like the fact that the deal got reached a couple of days ago before we recorded this, and the stock market went down the day after the deal was reached. So there was uncertainty about whether it was going to, pass the House, and it has, and it's going on to the Senate. But the real thing, and I was writing about this in last month's issue of Foundational Profits, is I had a whole section dedicated to liquidity, right? Now they've got to fund the government, right? They passed the bill to fund the government. Now they've got to actually fund it. And that gets above my pay grade, but it has to do with the, buying treasuries, and the money to buy the treasuries is going to come out of banks and potentially out of stocks. And so the fundamentals for the stock market are weak, and yet it continues to go up. And as I said, that's all because of 7 companies that are tech related.
All it takes is one Patriot Battery Metals and everybody thinks you're smart. All it takes is a basket of 7 stocks and all of a sudden they think everything's rosy. I agree with you 100%. I think it's important to know the way that indexes are weighted, and I think it's important to know, who leads or what companies lead those indexes, either higher or lower, because you, 1, could be missing out on some opportunities, or 2, you could be buying near a top not knowing that, sentiment isn't rosy all the way around. It's really a specific group of companies that happen to have a good quarter that are bolstering everything up. So we'll leave that there. I tell you what I do like. Gold, resilient, dollar index above 104. It went down after the debt ceiling agreement, quote unquote, hasn't been signed. I don't believe them until they sign it, but looks like they have an agreement in principle. But it held the 1977 mark really well today, stubbornly close to that 2000 level. Thoughts on gold? Still liking it?
I told you it's time to buy the dips in gold.
Buy the dip.
Buy the dip, sell the rip, just like it's been in the NASDAQ for the past 10 years. No, that's where we are. Gold is bullish. You've seen the 10-year come down a little bit, which has allowed gold to go back up. You remember it was closer to 1900 than 2000 the last time you and I recorded this podcast, and has had itself a good past week because those longer term rates have softened. No, lots of like with gold. Continue to buy the dips. I think it remains bullish. Got close to back to 2000 this week, and is doing its little consolidation thing. But I'm happy to have money allocated to both the paper physical, and the miners. And again, have made some recent recommendations there that you and I have talked about on this podcast. So gold remains bullish, and not just gold, the PGMs are bullish as well. Platinum I mentioned, I think, on a recent podcast. And so The silver's gotten swept back up a little bit on the commodity side of things, which we
Yeah.
always say is an industrial metal, and then copper remains soft. So silver not as much as gold, though still technically bullish, as is gold.
Have to talk uranium. Couldn't help but notice a lot of the uranium equities, and this was across the board, not just here in the US, but in Australia as well. A lot of the equities up some 15-20% here over the last couple of days. The spot price is up $1 or so over the last couple of days, but it's been steadily trickling higher, just a little bit at a time. Boring as all hell, right? But going in the right direction. And look, there's a rumor out there and it hasn't been confirmed, so we'll probably know by the time you all see this. We record this on Thursday, June the 1st. But there's a rumor that there's a utility that decided to fill one reactor and that they were willing to pay $59 a pound. And so it's supposed to be off market. It's supposed to clear the market early next week. And if it prints 59 next week from the 55 level right now, I can tell you the uranium stocks are going to be on absolute fire. This little 20% move, you haven't seen anything yet compared to what's coming if we get a 59.60 print here soon. Thoughts on uranium?
Yeah, it's funny how we sniff it out. We hadn't talked about uranium on this podcast in a bit,
Yeah.
and last week I made a point to talk about it. And I was saying that the spot price was moving up and was back to 52-week highs, and yet the equities were lagging and had some ground to make up. And lo and behold, they made up some of that ground over the past week. I agree with you. They have higher to go. Last week we talked about small modular reactors, and we talked about the Biden administration and the Import-Export Bank and the funds they were lending to that. We all know the fundamentals in the uranium space continue to play out, continue to build, and we were just waiting for what the next catalyst was going to be to send shares higher. And it sounds like you've got your finger on one there. I hadn't heard that rumor or seen that news anywhere, but that makes perfect sense. And certainly the equities, the uranium equities, and the uranium ETFs had a good week this week. So I look forward to more of that. They're still relatively cheap, I would say, after the most recent pullback. And so obviously I'm a uranium bull and like that space a lot.
I couldn't agree more. The lithium stocks continue to surge. Patriot was stable this week, closed right around the $16 a share level, hasn't broken a 20 yet. Frankly, I don't care when it does. I don't care when it hits 50. I just care that it does, right? The position isn't going anywhere in any meaningful way until that happens. But look, some of the other James Bay potential next big deals in the area are starting to really run. One which ran away from me, and I had mentioned it on this podcast because I was trying to build a position and I was unsuccessful because I hate chasing stocks, and this one just keeps running on me. But the one I have a pretty robust position on is Q2 Metals. We talked about it for several weeks. We told you we thought that 50-60 cent level a month or so ago was probably a low in anticipation of exploration plans that were coming up. And at the time, a 10-cent financing that you and I participated in becoming free trading. And sure enough, that hit a high of $1.08 this week on substantial volume. The other stock that I had mentioned because I wanted to build a position, but I'll let it out the bag because I think it's got some merit, and I think the audience is well served in doing some due diligence, is a company that's got a property right next to Q2's flagship, and that's Ophir Gold, right? They have a property that what's good for one is going to be good for the other. If Q2 hits and they're able to show that, they're hitting near the boundary of Ophir Gold's property, then it's one long continuous trend is kind of the thesis right now that should be proved up here late this summer, early fall, once Q2 gets out there and starts drilling. So I feel comfortable with my exposure to that part of James Bay because of my position in Q2. I do wish I would have added substantially at the 20-cent level. Congrats to those of you out there who were early on that and did add. That's one that got away from me because I hate chasing stocks. But thoughts on lithium, which to me clearly has bottomed, and thoughts on any of the other lithium names that you might be following that maybe aren't on the radar of most people?
No, I don't have a lot to add there. Q2 has been really strong, and you just recorded a video about that this week. We'll have to go radio silent on the Q2 coming up here in the next couple of weeks. but it looks good. One I'm involved with is critical elements, and it's been soft. And shareholders are wondering why it's fallen down below $2, where it hasn't been in some time. And I think that's a function of not having announced a financing package yet, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's waiting with bated breath because they're approved. Their project is approved. They've got the feasibility study, et cetera. And it's just getting long in the tooth waiting for them to announce a financing package. And you wonder what that is. Are they just being really picky? Are they, spending a lot of time doing their due diligence? But they put out news releases like they're, adding people, and they're going to continue to do exploration on their flagship, which is permitted, and some other projects that they have. And then the stock has been soft. So opportunities still abound in the lithium space. If you know where to look. But, I don't have a lot to add to Patriot or Q2. I'm a happy and content shareholder.
Excellent. What are you watching in the market here this coming week? I usually save that till the end, but I want to get right into that part of it.
Yeah. Gosh, we could use this to expand on the debt ceiling.
Let's do it.
So, the bond market got wonky because of this whole, debt ceiling thing, which they're stretching really close, right? Like they're going to be out of money on Monday or Tuesday. June 5th, I think, is the X date, as it were. And the Senate still got to pass it. You saw some noise on both sides of the political aisle when the deal got reached between the Speaker of the House and the President. And the far right was upset that McCarthy made some concessions, and the progressives were upset that the Biden made some concessions. Well, you got to make concessions to get deals done, but the things that were in there, particularly the student loans, is what I wanted to mention, and then we can talk about the liquidity as well. Is people have wondered how the consumer continues to spend, right? We know credit card debt just hit $1 trillion, and we know that the household debts are up, and everyone's been wondering, how can the consumer keep spending? And one of the overlooked things has been because the student loan payments have been deferred since COVID, right? And we know that whole thing's working its way through the Supreme Court, and they should have a ruling on that here in the next couple of months, June or July. And given the composition of the Supreme Court, I have to think that they're going to say, Joe Biden, go fuck yourself. These people got to pay their loans back. But nonetheless, this debt ceiling
That's
deal,
a legal opinion, folks. That's a legal opinion.
This debt ceiling, deal made it so that the loans are going to have to be starting to pay back. That was part of this debt ceiling deal, and that's going to take consumer spending power out of the system. I've seen people already pointing to, we know that a recession is coming, right? I mean, the yield curve has been inverted for over a year now, and it got a little bit steeper.
It's a long time to be inverted.
Over the past year, and we know that a recession has to come, and everyone keeps saying, well, this GDP keeps squeaking out. The consumer is, able to continue spending, and this people having to reach into their coffers to resume their student loan payments could be one of those things that takes the wind out of the sails of the economy and catalyzes or crystallizes a recession. The other thing I was going to say about the debt ceiling, and was writing about this last month in Foundational Profits, is the way that the government has to fund itself. And again, not an expert here on the mechanics of all this, but can give you the gist, right? I don't know a lot about anything, but I know a little bit about a lot, is what I like to say. And so here's a little bit I know about this debt ceiling, is that the treasuries have to be purchased to refund the government, to refund the Treasury Department. And that capital has to come from somewhere. And in an environment where we know that the M2 money supply has been shrinking, and there's already been runs on banks, that this money's got to come from somewhere, either from banking reserves or potentially from selling stocks to transfer into the treasury purchases. And so even though they've reached a deal, albeit by running all the way up until the deadline, I mean, the Treasury is going to be in technical default like next week. The Senate better hurry up and pass this. But then starts the process of funding the government, and so the liquidity issue is next. And that's what I'm keeping my eye on. Those couple of things there.
Yeah, definitely looking at the bond market, obviously. I mean, that's something I think even when it's smooth, right? When things aren't volatile, we're always watching for hints of what's coming next. So definitely keeping an eye on that. As always, expecting assays from Patriot. They have, I believe, 27 holes to report. I also want to hear plans for the exploration program that should be underway or underway soon. I understand there was a site visit to be had here in the near term. So I'd love to hear some details there. So, Patriots firing on all cylinders. A lot of the lithium names are firing on all cylinders. The uranium names seem to have gained some traction finally after a pretty, painful consolidation from recent highs, right? A lot of bargains in the uranium shopping aisle. That's about it. That's really all that I'm watching on my end. I know that you wanted to talk about Maryland license plates and Indian reservoirs. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity and the floor to educate us once again, Mr. Nick Hodge, because I have a feeling this one should be interesting.
I don't know about educate, but perhaps entertain. So, I used to spend much more time railing against the dumb things the government did, and I've gotten away from that in recent years. I think probably because I've been busy raising 3 young children and running 2 businesses. And so I haven't had the time, and also I'm a bit more, a capital than I did in previous years. So I'm more appreciative of where I am as far as life station, that I don't have to, be a curmudgeon about the government. But nonetheless, the government is still worthy of poking from time to time. So especially as it relates to how they serve themselves, the people in the government serve themselves and not others. And so just 2 quick stories to highlight that. In India, the country India, there was an official who had to do with natural resources, water allocation and farming and things like that. And he dropped his phone into a reservoir last week. Clearly the phone was gone and didn't function anymore, but I don't know if you saw this story. Do you know what this official in
I
India did?
haven't. No.
He had the entire reservoir drained and wasted all the water in the reservoir so he could retrieve his Samsung smart device, which was clearly broken. And now he's catching all sorts of flack from people, including farmers, who said, we could have
He's
used
still
this
alive?
I think it was something like they could have irrigated 1,500 acres or something with the amount of water that he wasted. And this is India we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Not a fully developed nation, right? Water's critical resource, gets routinely over 100 degrees. This guy drained the reservoir, used his power to drain the reservoir to get his Samsung phone back. So don't have to say much more other than that. But this is what I mean by how the government uses its station, or the people use their station in the government to serve themselves, right? No need to get this guy's phone back. It didn't function when he got it back anyway. And then the Maryland license plates is an interesting story as well. You'll laugh at this one. A couple of years ago, Maryland issued a special license plate to commemorate the War of 1812. It was the 200th anniversary, so that would have made it 2012. They put out the special license plate. It was, Star Spangled 200. It was. It had a drummer boy and an American flag, and it had a website at the bottom of the license plate, www.starspangled200.org. And I think it ran from like 2012 to 2016. They were issuing these license plates, so some 400,000 people have them, I think I read. And it's been a little bit since they stopped issuing them in 2016. It's been 6-7 years since they put those license plates out. And apparently, no one was paying attention to the ownership of the URL that they printed on all those license plates, that www.starspangled200.org. And so some government official forgot to renew that URL. And so if you happen to go to that website now, you will be promptly redirected to a Filipino gambling site clad with women revealing their cleavage. And this is on 400,000 license plates in the state of Maryland.
That is absolutely hilarious. And kudos to the gentleman or the woman that picked up on the fact that this had expired and went out there and bought it up. whoever that is deserves a raise if they are
Pretty good.
employed. Absolutely. I wish we could end on that note, but we started with me asking you if you were gay yet, and I mentioned the Blue Jays pitcher. Anthony Bass was his name, and I was incorrect. So I want to correct my initial statement there. It wasn't over refusal to wear the jersey. It was a video that he shared that endorsed anti-LGBTQ boycotts of brands such as Target and Bud Light. The clip says, here's the reason biblically why I believe Christians have got to be boycotting Target, Bud Light, and any other corporation that's pushing the things that they're pushing. And then he goes on to say, or the clip goes on to say, not even him, he says, this is evil, this is demonic, we won't stand for it, we're not going to go to the stores anymore, and we're not going to give you our money. Which again, even if I don't agree with his opinion, he should have the right to think it, and he should have the right to say it, right? And so he backtracked a few days later. He said his teammates reached out to him. They shared some stories, and he says that he wants to better educate himself and make better decisions going forward. I can agree with his right to say it, and I can agree with his right to want to educate himself better. Kind of neutral on that side of it, but anyhow, that's the actual story. Anthony Bass from the Blue Jays trying to make himself better.
Good for Mr. Anthony Bass.
Good for Mr. Anthony Bass. I think that's all we got, Nick. I hope everybody had a great Memorial Day here this past week. By the time you see this, it would have obviously been a week or so. But yeah, I don't have anything else I need to get off my chest. I think we're in for 2 markets this summer. We're in for red hot names that are going to do amazingly well. Companies that are exploring, making discoveries, adding to discoveries. And then look, I think there's companies that are just kind of biding their time, hoping that markets get better and lift all boats. I don't see a pleasant future for them in the near future, though I think the second half of the year will be, a much better trading setup from the macro side on the commodity sectors.
Look, commodities are soft. The people's wallets are tight. I've seen companies, trying to raise $2 million that are stuck at $1. I've seen companies that have had to reprice financings. And so it's not all gravy for all companies. And the sentiment in the commodity space is still soft. Look, we didn't talk about copper or oil, but copper's down below $4. Oil's down below $70. I told you that could be the case many months ago, that, it could be weak. And that's a function, again, as a broken record of, demand destruction being priced in because of this looming recession. And so it's not all gravy for all commodities, certainly. And you're going to have to pick your spots. And then, again, coming out of the backside of this, I think it's going to be really good. But there's companies that are struggling now. And, maybe some of those companies' balance sheets will make it so that they go to company heaven, as it were. There's some that are really close, and that's frankly healthy for the TSXV and those companies that list on it. So we can get capital better allocated to companies that are good stewards of it and that are actually putting it into the ground and are looking to explore, forward, develop, and mine resources that aren't just shareholder resources.
Couldn't agree with you more. You mentioned backsides and good. And speaking of good backsides, Lululemon shares surge after reporting a 24% sales growth, raising full year guidance. So I figured amidst a recession, amidst a tightening of the wallet, always good to see a good backside lifting the spirits of investors.
I like those yoga pants.
That's it, folks. I'm supposed to remind you to check us out at dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe to get all of our updates, market commentary from all of our editors who cover everything from crypto to the major indices to mining shares to off the beaten path sectors that merit some reading. A lot of good free education over there at Daily Profit Cycle. Strongly encourage you to check that out. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 221st episode of our weekly therapy session we call Investing in Bizarro World. Nick, send us off with some wise words.
I wonder if Lululemon sells gray sweatpants, which is the gay equivalent of the black yoga pants. Or so my gay friends tell me. Enjoy it.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.